Welcome to our regular session of City Council meeting held at 7:05 p.m., June 18th, 2024. My name is Spencer Summerhays, a council member. Tonight we're excusing Mayor Wilkinson, who is not able to be with us. So I'm serving as Mayor Pro Tem tonight. So apologize for any lurches and jerks along the way. But appreciate everyone's attendance tonight. We have a few business items that are public hearings, one of which has been taken off of the agenda. We can ask our city planner or our city community development director if that has been delayed for another night, or if it will, the application is being removed completely. We'll have him speak just in a moment, not quite yet on that. To get this meeting started appropriately, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Present.
Heyman present.
Summerhays present.
Hurst present.
Plummer present.
We have all 5 members of our council in attendance. Thank you. Tonight, I am scheduled for everything, it feels like. I have a council report as well as a thought or prayer, so I will make my thought very brief. This past week, we had final interviews for a new police chief, and I am so grateful to be not only part of that process, but to have served with Chief Child for these past couple of years. He's an incredible person and cares a lot about our community, and it was frankly for those of us that got to participate both in the preliminary interview process as well as the final, you sensed how much he meant to the community, and for our 4 final applicants, how much they respected him. And so we appreciate Chief Child. We're going to have a little bit of a farewell celebration for him in a few weeks. Invite anybody to attend that. But appreciate him, and frankly appreciate all our staff. This is my second time interviewing for a department head, and it's always a big responsibility. I feel a pretty big burden in that process. Gratefully, we have committees that help us out, and we've been able to come to unanimity on those. But that's my thought, is just a deep appreciation for all of our staff members, and especially Chief Child tonight. With that, yes. Thank you, Shaylin. With that, I'll lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll go ahead and ask our community development director just to come up just for 2 minutes. Mike Eggett is his name. He's fairly new to us. He's one of the interviews that I was able to be a part of. And just for the public's benefit, just give a status report. I'm guessing that many of them are here tonight to make comment as part of that, what would have been that public hearing.
Yeah.
So if you want to stay and still give comment as part of the open session, we welcome that and encourage that. We love that there's so much attendance here. As you all know, council members might know this. These are friends, neighbors. Maybe they don't feel the same way. That's okay. But friends and neighbors that are close in my neighborhood and still want everyone to have the opportunity to give open session public comment because you've already scheduled your night out, but encourage you, if this application does come again, to come to that next meeting. Mike?
Yeah, so I'm used to grabbing the microphone, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
We heard late this afternoon that the applicant was having some further discussions with the property owner about the direction that they wanted to go. And as a result, they've asked to have it, basically, they're requesting that it be pulled from the agenda. The understanding is we don't know what their status will be, if they'll continue forward with the rezone application at this time as a result of these further negotiations with the property owner. And so it's kind of a to be determined or to be announced status at this time, but we'll be sure to make known to the public and the council if and when that does the applicant desires to come back, what that status will be.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike. So TBD on the application, agenda item pulled.
Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
correct.
Thank you so much.
And is that about right, Jennifer? That's about right? Okay.
Okay.
Great.
With that, we'll go ahead and open the open session, which allows you as members of the public to comment or address the city council on any matters either listed on the agenda or not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. State your name and where you live.
My name is Dan Bills. I live on Rollins Circle. My wife and I moved to Centerville 4 years ago. Prior to that, we lived in Draper, just north of IKEA, west of the freeway. In the 11 years that we lived there, it started out as being a very nice, quiet community. However, as the years went by, they started building high-density housing and more and more and more. And if you drive down I-15 South and go just between 123rd South and IKEA, it's a wall of high-density housing. And let me tell you, it did not affect the community in any way positive at all. We had more police action in the area, and I don't want that to happen to Centerville. Even though this is small, it always starts small. Centerville is my favorite place I've ever lived. And that's, I think, my 2 minutes.
Give me your name again.
Dan Bills, last name is Bills.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
My name's Roger Barris. I live at 322 East, 500 North, and I'm here just to spend a couple of minutes and talk about another property that I own at 80 East on Parish Lane, just east of Main Street. And I have some photographs that I'd like to pass out, if I may do that.
Yes, that's one.
May I just bring to the city
Yeah,
recorder?
recorder would be great. Thank you.
I've owned a home there on 100 East or Parish Lane and 80 East for about 22 years now. And over that 22 years, I've seen a change in the way that parking is being used on 400 North. The first picture that you see there, I took last Thursday. You can see all of those cars parked on both sides of 400 North. And the problem with that is the residences right there, including the one that I own. When you try to back out of a driveway, you really cannot see oncoming traffic until you're about ready to be T-boned. And so the reason for that is that it has really gone from public parking to what I call commercial parking. These cars come in every day on weekdays. They park all day long, and they do not leave until the end of the working day. They're primarily from the businesses that are in the Smoot Commercial Building. As I drove by that building the other day, I noticed signs for 8 businesses and 20 parking stalls. You can do the math. There's not enough, and so it overflows onto the street. Well, the hazard is, again, with all of these cars that are parked there, it restricts the visibility. And I have been in contact with Councilmember Hurst and Chief Child. And I appreciate the responses that they've been giving me and the help and ideas for solutions. I just bring this to you tonight just to give you a heads up that I'm working on this, and hopefully the council can find some solutions to mitigate the problems. The bottom picture that you see there is a vehicle that's pulled in right next to the driveway. That was taken Friday. I was actually out cleaning the rain gutters on that house. And so I stepped out and asked the young lady if she wouldn't mind moving to a different place so it would not restrict the visibility for those people trying to back out of the driveway. And she said, "No, I'm not blocking your driveway." And she left. And so some people are considerate, others aren't. But I would like to at least bring that to your attention, see if there's a possibility of creating some no parking solutions. My solution would be that we have no parking signs there, preferably during the weekday from maybe 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that way, we wouldn't have, and I don't know where these other cars are going to go, but it is creating a problem for the residents who live on that street. So I bring that to your attention, hope that you will look at that, appreciate the help that I've been receiving from Councilmember Hurst and Chief Child. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.
My name is Libby Deb. I live at 281 Williams Lane. I came here to comment on the Handy Andy's property. So I'll just say, if that does come here, I'll try to be here again. But I would just like to comment, I think there's some pretty strong reasons why it's not fit for that area. First, the city recommended against putting high density in that location. Second, this planning commission voted against it. Third, the citizens voiced their concerns. I looked at the agenda, I saw 3 emails, all listed opposed in the packet. I'd also say most of the citizens here are also opposed. I'd say that most people, and that's just part of it. 4, the general plan says the region is for low to medium density. I think that the plan should be changed before you make changes to high density, rather than doing what you think might be an exception to fit whatever exception you think there is. I think it'd be better to follow the general plan and that works best. I talked to Paul Cutler about the Ivory homes, and he said that was a successful use of high density because it was a developer's agreement, and it was multiple people. They mixed high, medium, and low. They included the parks and the green space, and they came up with a really high-quality plan. So I hope that in the future, the city, especially if West Centerville becomes more of an option, that a developer's agreement be strongly considered for the highest quality outcome. I think people live in Ivory homes, that area, a lot longer than they do in the Brighton homes, which is close to where a lot of my friends live. And I feel really bad because I feel like it's a frustrating place to live where it appears as medium density, but once they live there, they experience a lot of the negative aspects of high density. The renters, the in and out, the not as much of a stable neighborhood, the parking is a problem. Just I compared to my friends who live in Shayla Park, and then I believe, I think that you guys voted against high density in the lot that was north of the Brighton homes. So you've also established a little bit of a precedent, so maintaining, which I really appreciate. So that is my comment. I think that medium density housing would benefit that area and create more starter homes for people who want to add to our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Libby.
My name is Rosalie Macmillan. I live in the Handy Andy's original house, the Hofoka home, the only single in Porter Walton Townhomes.
Can you say your last name one more time?
Macmillan,
Macmillan?
Macmillan,
Okay, thank you.
yes. So being the only single-family home there, I have to advocate for my family also. So it feels like Centerville City did this little experiment. Let's see if you put the black ants and the red ants in the jar and shake it, are they going to fight? Or if we increase medium density to 7.6 at Porter Walton as opposed to 6 at Shayla Park, let's see, are people going to get irritable? Can we get away with this? How about a private lane? The private lane is the bane of our existence. It's horrible. 2 cars can barely pass. We have to pay for our own private snow removal. We have to pay for our own paving. We have to pay for our own garbage removal because the city won't service it because it's this tiny little thing. And it sticks me in an HOA that I have no business being in with condos. So because of the stupid street. Anyway, I'm just here to say it was already a tragedy. 7.6 is too much. There's never enough parking. If I have a simple family event, I have to ask my family to go park out on Porter Lane because there isn't enough parking. And people are living on top of each other. And yeah, are they a little more grumpy? Yes. I love my neighbors. And we do the best we can. We just have too many of them. We just have too many of us. We're a little too crowded. The parking is a real problem. And if we're talking about the same block that we're already spilling out onto, and you're going to put 24 potentially cars on that 1 acre, I just see this as an absolute disaster. Please don't make it worse than it already is. It was already a tragedy. I just have to say, We had our house on the market for over 3 years and finally gave up because so many people would come to our house and say, this is a tragedy. And please, please don't make it more tragic. Please don't do high density in that one spot. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosalie.
Hi, my name is Julie Cahoon. I live on 274 South, 600 West. I'm in the Porter Walton complex that Rosalie was talking about. The reason why I'm here again is talking about the density conversation, especially in the Handy Andy piece. I know that's off the budget or off the agenda tonight, but I'm the HOA president in the area. And to add to Rosalie's comments, we've had issues with parking. The fact that I have to make a decision on whether I'm going to tow my neighbors or not is a concern. The fact that we have an issue with the possibility of a fire truck coming in. We have on the public road, or not the public road, the private road, the fact that we have moving trucks coming in and they take halfway through, or half of the street, there's that piece. There's a lot of issues with that, and the fact that here, because I went to the previous discussion about this, the fact that one of the council members for the planning committee for the area, he said he thinks it would be a good idea because it was a walking distance from Target, but the fact is, if let's say that 1 acre community was developed into high density, they would be walking through our property to get there. There would be added parking issues, and if I don't have to tow the neighbors in the community, I'd have to tow the next door community that has 12 possible units. That is a concern. That is something, if you've ever been towed, not a great experience, right? So I don't want to add to more contention within the community just with the parking piece. There's other concerns, renters, we have a cap. There's a reason why we have cap in the community. It's because we've had issues with renters in the community. And we want to be able to have that opportunity, but I still think there's been some issues with that. So there's a reason why it was RM for the first place for that 1 acre, and just be respectful. I think some of the comments were, well, we need to give the builders an opportunity to be able to have a space where they could do high density. The thing is, if you plan it right and make sure you plan it right, then you won't have like the parking issues or the space issues. And so if we're trying to cram more people in an area that is not made for that amount of space, then why are we changing the density to fit something to make it more of a problem? And that goes back to planning, and that goes to everybody in your seats. Are you going to agree to make this happen or not? And that's the thing, is I'm asking you as a community, as a council member, to make sure that when we're planning this piece, to think of how it's going to affect the community and the people around you. And that's all I'm asking, especially in that 1 acre spot. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Julie. Appreciate it.
Kyle Green, 433 East, 200 North, probably the most overdressed man in the building tonight. I had to make other arrangements from other obligations to be here. There are several things in Centerville that have always been constant, having lived here 40 years this year, being born, raised, and lived here. 2 things have been constant: tradition and hatred for density. Those are 2 things. And so far, in the last 5 to 7 years, I've seen both of those things happen, have detrimental things happen in both of those areas. Density has increased, tradition has decreased. Things that made Centerville great, like the 4th of July at Smith Park, where it was a family event, have turned into a massive carnival for the masses outside of our city. We're putting an event on this year that'll take place on the 4th and 6th I don't know of any other place that's doing fireworks on the 6th of July. So I anticipate we'll have most of the Salt Lake Valley here in Centerville taking up the spaces in the park to watch the fireworks. Over the last 3 years, I've gone at the end of each fireworks show and parked down at the 7-Eleven just to see how many cars turn back to the city and how many get on the freeway. Every year, 19-1, easily. Turn and go get on the freeway and go north or go south. They never go east. I've talked to many people that say it's great. I go over there. I can jump on Main Street and drive back to my house in 2 minutes because there's no traffic, which says to me nobody in our city is actually attending from the south end. They're just not. That tradition has been ripped from the hands and the hearts of those that live down here and moved to an area and put on for the masses, not for the people of Centerville. And quite frankly, it's disheartening, it's saddening, and we've ruined a great tradition to create a party for everyone else. Now I will talk about density really quickly, as I know my time is short. I came also because of the Handy Andy proposal. And I would just point to several other projects that have happened in the city. The Hive. Go down to the Hive at any time, any day, and you will not get a fire truck down that lane. There are cars parked on both sides. It is packed with cars. And we're allowing building of buildings that are 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, 1 parking stall. Go down to the Megaplex, look at those buildings. Those are 3-bedroom apartments, 1 parking stall. Look at Balling Engineering. Those are 4 houses that are crammed, right? Is it 4 or 6? 5. 6. 6 properties on that tiny corner where we were promised that the garbage truck would never back out onto the road. Yet every week, the garbage truck pulls in and backs out onto the road because there's not enough room. The snow flies. We get feet of snow. What happens there? There's nowhere to put the snow. That was never accounted for. It's shoveled straight out into the roadway and piled along the road. That's true with all of these developments that happen. We look at, oh, we can get density here. We can put more houses. We can put more people. But we don't look at the other things that come with that. Where are they going to park? Where are we going to put the snow? Where's the water runoff? The Brighton Homes development over here by the old Dick's Market property. They flooded 3 basements in the first year because they had no plan for the water runoff of all the rain gutters they piled into the backyards. And Brighton Homes went like this. We're out. Your 1 year's over. We're done. We have no warranty there. That's the HOA's problem. We've had how many HOAs go defunct that we've had to pick up their storm service and their stormwater services because they put in too small systems. And all of our rates went up to take over and take care of them. This is a constant problem that happens. And I'm sure this is the same type of thing that would happen on Handy Andy's property or even the O'Brien Glass property. If they're allowed to put density, once it's sold, they wash their hands and they walk away. They leave the problems here for the rest of us to pick up and deal with. And it is a constant problem. Now, being somebody that's lived in the south part of the city and being part of a religion, the LDS religion, we do a lot for those who are in need. And I will tell you, the one thing that density brings is a lot of need. And we spend a lot of time dealing with a lot of need. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be helped. We are happy to help. However, planning makes that possible. If you cram all the need into a 1 mile square area and leave everything else wide open and beautiful 1/3 acre, 1/2 acre, 1/4 acre, you don't deal with it. You don't deal with it if you're in North Centerville on a nice 1/3 acre development. You don't deal with those kinds of problems until you live in the heart of it. And right now, the heart of it is Parish Lane to Pages Lane, the frontage road to the mountain is all density. Every time. Then you go look at the green space. We have small parks that are inadequate. Other than Island View, which recently had an upgrade, there's not much here, but there's a lot of people. So I would ask you to consider, as we look at these things and we look at density, what is it doing to the quality of life of the citizens? And what is it doing to our tradition? Because as of right now, I feel like the quality of life has gone down, tradition has gone down, and the city, quite frankly, is starting to look old and tired as all of these big developments, Cedar Springs, are aging out. They're aging out, and they just don't look good. Now, you go look at a house that was built 150 years ago, it's a single-family home that a new home buyer has bought, a new couple, and they're out there fixing their sprinklers and mowing their grass and trimming their trees, and that home that's 120 years old looks as good today as it did the day it was made, if not better. You look at apartments that were made 30 years ago, 20 years ago, they look terrible. Nobody cares about them. The landlords don't care. They become slums, and it just deteriorates the very fabric of the community that we love and why people move here to begin with. And then the final thought is we'll all say, well, where are my kids going to live? Where are my kids going to live? Well, they're going to live in the same places that we've lived. Because, believe it or not, we all die. It all moves on. It all changes hands. It continues to turn over. But high density, they'll live here for a time, 6 months, 9 months, the baby comes, and then they're gone. They move somewhere else because that small little townhome, that small little apartment is no longer the hometown they were looking for. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Andrea Richmond, 327 Windsor Lane. I just want to say amen to everything that everyone has said. I live down in the area, and I just know that really, really good things happen if we listen to one another. And probably the majority of everyone sitting in back of me has great concerns, and many people who couldn't come have great concerns if that area turns to high density. We don't mind medium density, but I just ask you to remember that you do represent the citizens of Centerville, and to listen to us tonight. And we would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea.
Lorraine Fisher, 391 South, 675 West. I have reactive airway disease. I really have a problem with high-density traffic. I hope you will consider to not do that. There's people that cannot breathe and have a hard time with that, health-wise. When they go and do the yard work, depending on how many yards they do, there's always weed eaters going, there's lawnmowers going, and that affects me health-wise. I want to stay healthy. Please consider that. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorraine.
Stephanie Ivy, 595 South, 700 East. I'm so glad I'm in this spot and not yours. But I want you to know something about when I was sitting in your spot, and that's about a little bait and switch that took place on a property down Porter Lane that was known as Handy Andy's. I regret that more than anything. Being taken for a ride, being told that it was for an assisted living center, and us believing it and changing the zoning for that, and then that being changed that, oh, that wasn't feasible, now we're going to do it for density housing. Don't fall for it, you guys. Centerville's worth more than that. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Cami Layton, do you want my address? They usually
Just that
ask
you
for
live
an
in
address.
Centerville, Cami.
Centerville. I just want to mention two things that haven't been talked about. I agree with everything that's been said. One thing is if we open the door to this and approve it, we're going to have to be very careful with the other developments that could be possible. We're opening the door to other future high density, and we don't want that. The citizens have voted against that in our city surveys time and time again. So for me, when I get a city survey again, I won't do the survey anymore because we're not being listened to. The citizens have told them over and over again, we want a small town atmosphere. The other concern that I have tonight is, and it makes me cry only because I've had my in-laws die the last few months. We are so open to welcoming new people in our city, but we can't take care of our dead. And we are kicking out our dead because there's no cemetery. We're very hard on the senior citizens. Our area is aging. And so where is our developments for, I wish some of the developers, I don't care how much it costs, people that have the money will pay for it. We need some level, with no basements and no tops, just single-family homes for elderly people. There's nowhere to go. So please consider, as you're trying to welcome in new people, that we take care of the citizens who've paid taxes all these years. It's a tradition. We talked about traditions. We want to be buried where we've lived for years and years. So please consider that, that we would like a place to be buried. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Hi, Betty Jo Garlock. I live at 308 Windsor. See lots of my neighbors here, and I've grown to love Centerville. I've raised my children here as a single mom, and I actually work in real estate. I help tons of families buy, and what's something that's been really disheartening is seeing our community like this have no room for change. You know, we see a lot of spot rezone, you know, multi-use rezoning like we did by Chick-fil-A, where there's single-family homes, there's condos, there's townhomes, and it's actually improved the land really well, and it's allowed people that are my age and younger to be able to stay here. And sadly, what my fear is, being in my 30s, wondering where my kids are going to grow up. My kids have all been able to walk to school, and I've been so grateful for that. Most of their friends get bused. You know, they live in the condos or the apartments on the west side of the freeway, and that's really hard, like to have children be so far away from the community they go to school at. And if we don't allow some change, like, you know, not that we don't need to look out for the elderly, but what about our youth, the kids that are going to be the future of this place, you know? So having spot rezones for medium and high density are something that we have to start looking at to improve our community and for growth. We have to grow, we have to evolve, and we can't, as much as we want to preserve our small neighborhoods, like, we're growing no matter what we want, and we have to kind of have some change for everyone. So having owner-occupied condos and townhomes for our young generation that are having to look out of state or areas that don't have the job close to the location to live, and being someone, you know, where I help lots of families, they're buying in Ogden and driving 2 hours away just to go to work, and that's what's causing the traffic. Being able to, they want to stay here, they can't. So as a community, as a person that helps people find homes, we need to look at change and having mixed use, where a lot of these, you know, an acre property, that's not going to bring a lot of harm, but it's going to allow more children to be able to walk to school and to be able to stay locally and, you know, include them in, you know, they come to church and all that stuff. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Betty Jo.
This is the first time I've ever done this. My name is Tammy Bryson. I live by Council Member Spencer Summerhays. I don't have anything really to say other than I just want to let the citizens know I just don't want any density at all. And I don't think I can do anything about it, but I want you to know I don't want one more person coming into Centerville. I want it closed. So that should tell you how I feel.
My name is Wendy Connors. I live in 150 West Circle. I'm also Spence Summerhays' neighbor. I'm someone who has lived both on the west coast and east coast of the United States. We lived in the San Francisco area, we lived in the Los Angeles area, and we lived in New York. We've seen what high-density housing is. The reason we chose Centerville was because it's not high-density. It's where we can raise our family, where we can breathe fresh air, where we can enjoy the outdoors without being on top of one another. My husband and I are both from Utah, and I appreciate everyone who's talking about where are our kids gonna go. I have children who are old enough to be gone from my home. Well, the reality is, I didn't get to live in the town I was raised in because we couldn't afford it. That's kind of how life is. You start somewhere else, and maybe you can eventually make your way back there. But I'm just here to voice my opinion that I am adamantly against high density. Medium, that's great. You know, let's give some families a little bit more options with that. And then also, I just want to comment on what Cammie said. We do need to take care of those that have been in our communities and think about how we're going to bury them and where they're going to be. Because if you support a community your entire life, you should have the right to be buried there.
Thanks, Wendy.
Hi, my name is Bruce Mattson. I live at 374 Williams Lane. First thing I'd like to say is I grew up in Holiday and moved here because we had to find space. In Holiday, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house just sold so they could tear it down and sell the lot for $700,000. They're not concerned about where the kids are going. I grew up there my whole life. But I moved here 32 years ago. So the one thing that I would hope this city council, because I've seen several in the 32 years, and that is before we moved here, we came in, we researched where we were going to move, and we live 100 feet from Fourth West. At that time, Fourth West didn't go past the church property on the white church there. We told and asked the government here, the city and everyone, what's the plan? Oh, there's no plans for that road to go through. Yeah, that lasted for less than 10 years. Then all of a sudden Target came in and they put the road through. But they said, hey, we'll make it so that there's no trucking route here. Well, what does that mean? Well, there's not going to be anything bigger than a pickup truck that should go on that road. Well, that has now changed from what the police department has told me, that anything just short of 54-inch, which is a semi-truck length, weight and everything like that can go down that road. And they do. And even though it's posted 30 miles an hour, that little speed sign, if you could record, is at 40 miles an hour most of the time. And those big delivery trucks, which are 40 to 45 feet long, they hit the uneven intersection at Fourth West and Porter, and you hear them at my house. And you hear their cargo shifting around and everything else and the axles. The point I wanted to bring up is we were told over 32 years all of these things would not happen. And the one thing that was constant in all of the city councils that we came and talked with is they did not live in the area. They were mostly from the north, northeast. When the west side got developed from Fourth West, some of them were over there. But none of them lived in the southwest corridor of the city. We didn't even get parks down here until we'd been here 20 years. So the thing I'd hope that this city council would take in consideration is we live there. You may think it's a probable idea to build 3-4 stories high and make it a 12, 14, 16 unit place. But we have to live with all of that. Just like the 2 other developments that are down there with the parking problems. And the problem that I see is that you don't live in the problem. You're making decisions in areas you are not being affected by. Now, Councilmember Summerhays, he's close by.
I disagree with you, Bruce,
Well,
but that's okay.
You're not 100 feet from Fourth West either. You're a long ways away and you don't hear all the traffic. And I'm sorry for the police chief, but they're doing a terrible job maintaining traffic speed on Fourth West. There was a policeman there today for less than a half hour parked in the church parking lot. And after that half hour, he was gone, never showed back up at all. So the thing that with the high density, when the nursery was going out, there was tons of studies for months on end. And the thing that was constant with everything that was researched, we called every city, West Valley up to Ogden, down to Draper. Every single police force said their worst crime area was high-density places. They have more calls, they have more emergency assistance going there for EMTs and fire trucks and everything else. So I don't think this 1 acre block is going to do what the nursery plan was going to do, but it still impacts that area. We were told, hey, when the latest development, they'll all go down to the frontage road to get out of Centerville. No, they don't. They come right up to that intersection. They wait 3 and 4 cars deep because it's a stop sign. And the traffic is just terrible because it's also the major thoroughfare from Centerville exit through Bountiful. And we get Cisco and Nicholas Foods, and we get Home Depot truck drivers. We get every single one of the deliveries from Walmart going down that road. Not just people, not just cars, but all of the commercial vehicles. And now you're going to add 50 to 75 cars, depending on how many units, because you plan on two per building unit. And so we've lived with a lot. A lot has been told to us, nothing's been upheld, because the next group comes in and they think, oh, yeah, this is doable. Well, but they don't have to live with it. They don't have to endure it every day, like the people who are already here that have been longtime citizens. And the thing that disturbed me the most about the hearing that was held on this before, the motion was to reject the change into high density, and 2 voted against that rejection. And the chairman, don't know their real title, but their comment was, I don't want to discourage other developers. And I'm going, you're my city. You're planning for me. You're not planning for the developers or all these other people. You have no jurisdiction or reason to make them money. You're supposed to be looking out for us and what is good for the city, but the people who are already here. And I'm sorry, but if this is the only southwest quadrant that has open land, we can't solve every problem the state has mandated that cities plan for in that one section of the city. We can't do it. Now, if we wanted to go back 30 years, that would have been a great idea. But you can't do it now. You've got to do what's best for people around and the city. If not, let's go take out some of the parking lot that isn't being used between Target and Home Depot and all those because everyone's buying online, and put high density in the middle of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Any others?
I appreciate the open mic and opportunity to be open about what we have to say. I just
It's
hope you-
open for 2 or 3 minutes, yes.
Well, I'll yield back if you want to have any more to say, anybody.
Jerry, you need to, for the record, just introduce
Jerry
yourself.
Fisher, yeah, I live in, right across the street from Shayla Park there in the Brighton Homes. You've got, I don't know what you zoned there for the business right on the frontage road, but now there's this huge, the first thing they do is put in this gigantic billboard. So you never know what you're going to get, I'm sure that I heard people telling me that before we moved in, they were standing up for us. They wanted a wider street, kind of like Shayla Park. We didn't get that. And so now we got, parking problems. And when the garbage cans are out, it looks like, they're almost back to back to each other down the street. We're right on the street, so we don't have to worry about that, but I feel for my neighbors. But I don't trust, I wouldn't trust Brighton Homes for the next 100 years. I mean, with all the problems we've had, they settled for $5,000, which is what they're going to do maybe build a sidewalk for a couple of people or something, but we had trouble with all the subcontractors, especially with the sprinkling. If they already said that. I couldn't quite hear what some people said, but our roof started leaking about in the fifth year, and come to find out they didn't put the tarp over the top of the peak of the roof. They just finished it up here, and that was it. There was nothing to cover over the top of the roof. And the guys that came in says, well, if that was us, we'd be doing that for nothing. We'd be trying to stick out for our reputation. Well, where's all the subcontractors now? Where's Brighton Homes helping us now? So they took all our topsoil. So even though we've got nice grass for once, because we have a little bit more water, it's still patchy because there's no good soil around the yards. So I don't know who's going to be developing, but I'm sure that there'll be issues that nobody can do anything about by the time after a year that So that's probably my 2 minutes, but I just think a lot of traffic there. I almost hit a guy coming across the street, crossing 4th West to come up here. Now, it was my bad for sure, but it's getting enough traffic down there. We should have a stoplight probably, but anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
Well, since I'm new at this, I don't know. How do we ask questions?
This is a public comment, so we're taking notes, and we take those into consideration as
So
council.
how do we do that?
How do we do what?
How do I make comments or questions? Because my concern is too, is that I remember back a couple of years ago that, I don't know if this is hurting HIPAA rules, but I actually had a patient who was a wife of a police officer here, and it was actually kind of scary talking to her because she didn't feel like she was safe. Her husband said we weren't safe here anymore. That was a couple years ago, but that was because of that west development over there by the Larry H. Miller Theater. So I just want everybody to know that was a big concern for me. I don't want any more people. Please, please help us out.
I already wrote that one down, Tammy, so I've got that in my notes right here.
Brian Richmond, Centerville, 327 Windsor Lane. I think hearing all this, I see a couple of problems. One is poor planning and, narrow roads where fire trucks can't go through, or poor building. Builders come in, they build a lot for their money, but they have leaky roofs, or they have bad sprinkler systems, or they have bad parking, just bad planning. So in the future, if there is development happen in the city, we should do good work. We shouldn't build junk. And we shouldn't allow builders to come in and build junk, or to build narrow roads where you can't get a fire truck down there. If they had a fire down in Brighton Homes, there would be a big problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Michael Connors, I'm at 489 South, 150 West Circle, and appreciate the council's time. I'm just going to quickly add my voice of support to those who have opposed the high-density housing. You heard from my wife a little while ago. We moved here from New York City 12 years ago, and I'll tell you, that's high density. We lived in a suburb north of New York City, and I'll give you, the way I think about this is I'm sure in a lot of the cities in Westchester County where we lived, there was a meeting just like this one, but it was probably 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 years ago. And they probably decided, hey, if we get a lot more people in here, we'll increase our tax base, we'll increase our revenue potential, we'll have a vibrant city with lots of people spending money. And that probably was true for a little while. And I'd actually echo, and I don't know his name, the guy in the blue suit, but
Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle. I think Kyle's observation is what I observed when I went to some of the old townships and some of these suburbs of a huge metropolitan area. It was there were areas where they maintained what I would call discipline with regard to density. And those areas were very nice, and the home values were high. People took pride in those, that they still mowed their lawns. So I would echo again a lot of the things he said. Then I looked at areas, as an example, Yonkers, New York, places like this were a little closer to the city. I'm sure those apartment complexes were beautiful when they built them. They were brand new, they were great. They were probably really nice and everyone moved in. 60, 70, 80 years had passed, and as he mentioned, probably not a lot of care taken. Common areas overgrown, trash on the streets, broken down cars in the streets, lots of people milling around, drug addicts, a lot of crime. It just comes with that territory. So, I'm as welcoming as anyone else, to new members of our society. I think the density is highly correlated with undesirable things over time. So there's certainly a trade-off, and your decision is to make, hey, do we take the short-term benefit, of higher taxes, higher base, lots more people, and potentially sacrifice the long-term nice and quiet environment of our city. So that's kind of the way I see it. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, Mike.
Hi, my name is Catherine Gardner, and I live on 111 West, 550 South. We've lived here for 21 and a half years. We moved here from Hawaii, and we're from Utah, but we knew nothing about Centerville. And within a couple of years, we began, at that time I didn't attend meetings, but we understood that the empty space owned by Porter Walton Company was being interested in by many developers, and that meetings that were being held, that it was proposed to have more, I don't know, not necessarily this high density that you're talking about tonight, but more high density, and that the citizens of Centerville were able to talk the council out of doing that and to building the Ivory homes, single-family homes, and how happy they were to keep Centerville the way it is now. And so I'm hoping that the city council will be able to agree with that type of thing again and keep from having high density here. We've enjoyed living here for 21 and a half years, and Centerville is a wonderful place. We really enjoy it. I did hear, talking to a neighbor who lives on Porter Lane and 400 West on the corner, that she went outside once to get the mail, and the police were there, and a unknown man was there, and the police were pointing a gun at him. I don't know what she didn't know what he had been doing, but there are people around that we don't necessarily want to have. So we hope that the high density will not be approved. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. And Kathy's, as a side note, is probably one of, if not our most prolific walker in the city, so. Any others? Thank you for your attendance. As Mr. Eggett noted, we don't know if this will come back on a city council agenda or not. We do know, obviously, that it was pulled from this agenda, so please stay tuned, and we welcome you to come back and encourage you to come back at that time as well. Thank you. We'll go ahead and close the open session. Moving on to the agenda, our next item is a presentation from Tiff Miller with the South Davis Recreation District, who will give us an update on general programming and any other updates. Tiff, it's all yours.
Jennifer, you just want me to let you know when I'm good to move from one to another? Do you want me to hold off until?
What's that?
Yeah,
Just wait. You can wait as long as you want. I will just note that being on the board with this rec center, we just encouraged Tiff, and I think, when's the last time you were here? A couple years ago, or a
was
year
here
ago?
last year.
Last
Just
year?
last
Okay.
year.
So this is just kind of regular update that the rec center, as a member city, have.
I'm hoping
Tiff
to do
come in.
another one if we can in the fall, once we get into some of our other programming that'll happen later in the year, so we just update that kind of stuff.
Okay, Tiff, take it away.
Yeah, so, thank you for having me. Obviously, the South Davis Recreation District is a big part of Centerville, along with the other 4 cities that are involved in the rec district. I have some information just to provide you about how some of the things that we're doing that have changed over the last couple of years, encouraging the new changes that we have to take place. And then we're looking at some of the data that just wanted to show you how much use the rec center gets from Centerville residents and different things that they're participating in, and just sort of talk about what's going on right now. And then, like I said, in the fall or winter time, maybe come back and talk about some of those other programs, just to give you some more updates and things like that about what's going on. But one of the big things that we currently do, that we have a big cooperation with Centerville, is utilizing the Centerville Community Park for our soccer program. Somehow that lease is up in next year. It's been 7 years since that originally happened. So definitely would love to, in the future, obviously not tonight, but just want to get that ball rolling with conversations again, because it's been a huge benefit for us, and hopefully it's been something that's worked well with Centerville as well. We've seen our soccer program grow immensely and been very successful in that location. So that's one of the things that we'll hopefully have conversations with in the near future. Something we talked about over the last couple of years with the rec district is a possible bond, and at this point, right now, we're not looking at that for this year, and that's something that will come up probably in future conversations, but there's not really much talk about that this year. We're trying to get, continuing to look at our fiscal activity and improving there before we start looking at more of those growth and changes. I know with the rec center, there are things that we do want to look at. Certain legislations have come into play that we have to look at certain possible changes in the future. But right now with the bond and looking at future growth into new areas, second facilities isn't something that we've really looked at too closely for the last year or two. But it is something that is part of a master plan that we came up with, because we know that the community does want to continue to see different activities, different opportunities for recreation. And we'll continue to look at that master plan as a guideline for us going forward.
Tiff, just for the council's benefit, can you remind them when that bond rolls off?
Oh, so our current bond goes off next year, 2026, so the beginning of 2026. So we have one more year left on our current bond. So, yeah. Along with that, with the bond, one of the things that we saw through the master plan was our pools are maybe not as big as we want them to be. When you have a rec center like ours, where a lot of people come to utilize it for aquatic activities, for lap swimming, for swim teams, for different aquatic aerobics classes, it takes a lot of space. So one of the things, unfortunately, when the facility was built, it was not built with a 50-meter pool. So that's one thing that we've looked at, trying to figure out how we can do that. We've talked with the school district quite a bit about how we can do that. We're trying to have conversations still with them. At one point, they had mentioned that they would be willing to donate money towards the growth of a pool or the building of another pool. Since that time, they're toying with the idea of building their own pools. I don't know if they really want to go down that route, but that's something that. But that is a conversation that we're continuing to have. So they were looking to help with that process, because they do utilize our facility for their swim teams, and it is important for them to be able to have that space as well. One of the things we have done, and I'll talk a little bit more about it as well later, but we've done the ice ribbon with the city of Bountiful, and I think that and the community park utilization, I think, has shown how getting out into the community is really important for not just staying inside the facility, but getting out and doing programming and doing different things throughout the entire community. So I think that's been a big benefit. The ice ribbon's been very successful for us. If you've never been there, I encourage you to go. But working within the community, getting out and doing different activities and doing different things with our city members has been really something that we've wanted to do more of, and hopefully can continue to do more in the future. some of the things that we look at for additional revenue sources. So looking at, obviously, as the rec district, we collect money, we collect fees, we collect tax subsidies. But looking at down the road, trying to find out ways that we can continue to look for new grants and sponsorship opportunities. I'm going to be working on a new sponsorship package that we can put out there to help maybe bring in more sponsors to help donate to the rec center and donate to programs, helping those with lesser, with low income that maybe be able to participate in more programming, trying to find new ways to get more sponsors into our facility and into our district. So we're looking at a lot of different ways. If you can go to the next slide, Jennifer. So we have made some changes over the last couple of years. One of the more recent changes was that we looked at our facility, and we used to be open until 11 o'clock, and we looked at it, and it just didn't make as much sense as it used to in the past to stay open that late. We weren't getting utilization for that last hour, so we did change from Monday through Thursday to close the facility at 10 p.m. And I think that's made a great difference for us. It's helped our staff to be a little bit more, I think it helped our staff just to not have to be there as late. I think that helped them feel a little bit better about their positions, but also helped us to help save money and looking at some ways that we can do that throughout the year. So some of the other changes that we've done some restructuring with our staffing. So we've cut back on some of our full-time staff, and we're continuing to evaluate our staffing numbers there. We've been really involved, and Spencer's been very involved in our rules and regulations update. We still have a couple more things to change there, but we've been a really intensive, really involved process of looking at all the rules and regulations for our programs, for our facility, the usage, the groups that come in, and just trying to make sure that it's not only just fair for the people, but also making sure that people understand that there's certain requirements and certain ways to act in a facility, and we're trying to do our best to make sure those rules and regulations are enforced. Some of the things that we've upgraded over the last couple of years, I've talked to this council before in the past about it, but we've did some projects shortly after COVID. We had some roof issues with our leisure pool that were replaced, the roof in there, and our air handlers for those two lap pool and leisure pool. With those projects, it was a $1.8 million project to replace that roof, the large portions of that roof at the leisure pool and those air handlers. We also included and put in a new activity structure for our pool because our other one was getting really bad and it needed to be replaced. So that was all done right after COVID. Unfortunately, at the time when we were seeing our lower numbers just because of everything that was going on with that situation with all the illness and everything that was going on. But we've continued to grow, and we've looked at other things that we can look at and other projects that we can work on. So some of the projects that we have this year is our ice arena. If you've ever been in the facility, the ice arena is right as you walk in. If you walk into the pool area, you have a turnstile and a gate. When you walk into the ice arena, you don't. So we're working on doing that probably after the summer, trying to get that situated to where we have a turnstile. It's blocked, so there's not as much free access in there. We do have to be careful about access for people with disabilities because there is an elevator, so we'll have to make sure that's accessible for them. And that's some of the things we're working on right now. But making sure that that area is getting as much focus as the other side with the pools and the fitness, and making sure people have access that are supposed to be there and not trying to just walk in and get on the ice and trying to track people down when they do that. So hopefully that will be a big benefit for us. That's one of our big projects this year. On the ice side, still, we have a new Zamboni budgeted for this year. If you've ever seen the Zamboni, you wouldn't, well, maybe you would, but for me, I wouldn't expect they'd be as expensive as they are, but they are very expensive pieces of equipment. The one we currently have is just over 10 years old, and it's been utilized really well. So we're trying to upgrade that, and we have that in the budget for this year. And every year we try to upgrade and replace any fitness equipment that's been getting older and worn down, so we have that in the budget as well. We've replaced a few pieces of equipment already this year, so that's some of the things that we're continuing to work at. One of the things the board has recently done is updated our bylaws. We were a board of 8 members for 17 years. I guess that was put into place before the the code was changed to try to keep it at an odd number. So now we had some members drop off the board. So instead of trying to replace 3, we're going to replace 2. So the board voted to change the bylaws to 7 members to keep that odd number going forward. And we just had interviews yesterday. So we'll be having some new board members coming up in the next, by our next meeting, more than likely. So we're excited about that. And the bylaws were changed back in, I believe, March. So just some changes there as well, just to the board and just to the dynamic there that's going to be going on over the next few years. Turn to the next one. Okay. Changes to the budget process. So last fall, we looked at how can we really delve into and get a little bit more finer detail about our programs and seeing what programs are really successful, see what programs are maybe having some issues. And so we changed our budget process. We added 900 new codes to our budget. So a lot more detailed, a lot more information to get, and we've started seeing some of that information. And this year will get us a good baseline for going forward for our next future budgets. But we're really looking forward to getting that information to analyze our programs and make sure that we're getting the best out of what we're doing. You may also be very familiar with, in the fall, we looked at the possibility of our subsidy being increased. We hadn't increased that subsidy since we opened. And because of COVID, because of different projects, our cash on hand had gone down over time, as well as just overall increases in cost for running the facility like ours. It's a very large facility, 180,000 square feet, so operating that facility continues to grow in cost. But we looked at the subsidy, and currently, before this year, we were at 0.00011%, and that subsidy level can never go above 0.002. So this might sound confusing, but we did an increase relative to our subsidy was before. It was a 76.541% increase, which equated to about $775,000 in new property taxes, which equates, based off all of our what we were looking at in all of our investigations, to about $13 a year on average for a $574,000 home, about $1.12 per month. So that subsidy will be addressed for this fall for the first time. So we'll see that. We had our meeting yesterday where that was sent off to the county. So we'll have that subsidy coming in this year, a little bit different than in years past. One other thing we're looking at is our cash reserves. So in the past, we've had a reserve fund that looked at repair and replacement costs and having emergency funds, and we're looking at seeing what that level is supposed to be. So we've had some meetings, we've had conversations, and we'll have more conversations at our next meeting, maybe into the future meetings, depending on how long that conversation goes, trying to come up with the best plan of what that number should be. So we're really looking at that. We'll have a new plan in place in the next few months of what our reserve and repair and all that cash reserve should look like. And then 2023 update. So 2023, our original budget, we were looking at possibly in being conservative and looking at how we were doing. We actually budgeted for a $440,000 loss for 2023. And I was very pleased to see that we actually ended up having a net gain of $121,000 for 2023. So it was a very positive trend for us. And we were looking forward to that continuing going forward. But that was something that we were very excited to see. We put a lot of work in. The board spent a lot of time with us trying to work together to figure out the best ways to help with some stuff. And we still have some ideas and ways to go to maybe increase that each year. Before COVID, the budget was bringing in roughly $400,000 to $600,000 net increase every year. So we're hoping to get back to those type of numbers, and we're hoping that we can do that outside of any subsidy increases, that we'll see our operations continue to grow and grow. Let's see, if you go to the next page. So the membership information. So over the next couple slides, we'll talk about some things going on with our membership. our current programs, recreation, aquatics, and ice ribbon updates. But I wanted to touch base, if you want to go to the next slide. I'm sure all of you can read those numbers. But I put it up there because we have a lot of different types of passes, a lot of different options. So we have passes that are for annual passes, for their monthly passes. We have punch passes. We also have, and it's displayed on there as well, we have passes for those who get their payments, or they get their membership through insurance. So they can come to the facility, use their insurance, and we receive money from the insurance company for how many visits they typically have per month. But I did want to say that right now, currently, we've got about 19,200 members for the rec district. And that's about 17 or so percent of the district population, 17, 18%. And from the numbers I pulled up just the other day, about 3,800, almost 3,900 residents from Centerville are members of the rec center, which accounts for about 20% of our membership. So I would say behind Bountiful, that's the highest number that we have. And I really appreciate the use that Centerville gets from the rec center. I know Centerville's probably the second closest other than Bountiful, but I really do feel like as part of this community that we really want to cater to everybody in every city that we have. And I really appreciate the residents that come in. I recognize a lot of residents tonight that are frequent members of the rec center. So I just wanted to point that number out, that 20% of our membership customers are coming from this city. So I also wanted to highlight a couple other things before we get into our other programs. But being summer, swimming is important. Swim lessons are important. And throughout the year so far, 212 residents of Centerville have taken part in our swim lessons. So we've had about 1,500 to 1,700, about 1,700 people so far. So that's a pretty good number of residents taking part in our swim lessons. I'm going to talk more about our current and our most recent programs, but I did want to touch on our junior jazz. In the wintertime, just that session that we had 143 junior jazz participants from the city of Centerville. So we're seeing a lot of people coming, and that's from starting in first grade all the way through 12th grade. So there's a varying, and that's just the rec side of things. That's not the competitive side. That's not our teams that are formed prior to registration. Those are just people that come in and register individually that are participating from the city of Centerville. So I think that's really good numbers, and we hope to continue to see those going forward as we get into the fall. If you want to go to the next slide. So we finished up our youth soccer in May for our spring youth soccer, and we started registering for our fall beginning of this month. So not much time between seasons, but I wanted to point out where we were in our registrations for the numbers so far. So I like numbers for these types of things. I find these intriguing, so hopefully you do as well. And if they're boring for you, I apologize, but I think they're interesting to see. But we had about 1,314 people register for soccer so far. Our registration is still currently open for the fall season, so we expect those numbers to continue to increase. But I wanted to point out that Centerville has had 229 residents participate in our soccer program. So behind Bountiful, that's our second highest. So it's really a good number, and we really think that's something that we want to continue to see increase, and we probably will likely see that number go up as well as we continue to register in the next few weeks. If you want to go to the next one. Youth baseball. So this one's lower, and for obvious reasons. Centerville runs your own baseball program. We still get some people from Centerville to participate in there, but we do see more of the other communities participating in that. But we do participate with our older age groups in competing with the Centerville baseball teams. We've seen over the last couple of years our registrations, and I believe it's similar in different areas of the community, that baseball registrations aren't as high as they maybe have been in the past. So we've had ways to combine and play against other leagues, and in our older age groups we've had to do that, and it's been great and valuable for us to be able to continue to have those teams, but also find more opportunities for them to have games. If you go to the next slide. NFL flag football. I'm not sure why this one's a little bit lower, but maybe it's because Centerville falls between Farmington and the rec district, so maybe this is a combination of participation in both teams. But flag football not necessarily the largest participation from Centerville, but I would say flag football is our largest growth in programming this year. We've seen a lot of people participating in that in the spring. We've seen the numbers even higher than last year for the fall, so we're encouraged by that growth and looking forward to that going forward. Next one. And in youth volleyball, large number of Centerville residents participate in our youth volleyball program, and that goes from 1st and through 12th grade as well. So a lot of good use of the facility, good use of our programs from the residents within the Centerville boundaries. Okay. Okay, so a little bit about aquatics and fitness. So that is one of our departments within the district. Just touching on some of the things that we do aquatics and fitness wise. So obviously if you're coming to the pool, that's our open plunge when you're coming just to have fun with your family. But we also have swim lessons, as I mentioned before. We have a large swim team, about 225 participants, a tsunami swim team, a master swim team of adult swimmers, water polo, and water aerobics. Our fitness area, we have group exercise, cycling, training, education, small group classes, and fitness competitions. And I'll touch a little bit more on some new areas within the fitness and wellness that we've been trying to grow over the last year and a half. We have special events. So our egg dive was our first event this year. We have Dogapalooza coming up next. We have races. We have different things coming up. We do outdoor movies. I know Centerville does that as well, but we do those at Town Square within Bountiful. Our next race will be our Handcart Days Half Marathon, which is coming up in a month. It's coming up pretty quick. So Thanksgiving Day, 10K, Sweethearts 5K, Splat 2 triathlons, one in the spring, one in the fall, and we have indoor triathlons. So if you've never participated in triathlon, the indoor triathlon is a good way to sort of get your foot in the door, get some experience riding bikes, swimming, and running all in one evening within the facility. So we utilize all our own equipment and stay inside the facility itself, and we try to do those mostly when it's a little bit colder outside. Okay, thanks. So I mentioned I would touch on some wellness stuff. So we've been working on trying to find ways that we can help in the community with anxiety, with youth that are having issues, even with adults that are having issues with different things going on in their lives, finding ways to decompress, maybe find ways to relax. And we have a program called Dr. Nedley's Anxiety Depression Recovery Course, as well as Sky Teens and Sky Kids. It's a course, the course is really center around breathing and working on your breathing and techniques and things like that. And so it's an opportunity that we've tried to grow, and we've seen recently we had our Sky Kids last week we set a limit for 25. We had 21 people participate in that one. Sky Teens, we had 15 set up, but we had about 8 participate in that. So we're hoping to get more there, but we're trying to see how these programs can grow. And one thing that I've talked with some of the other cities as well that I've been able to speak with is we'd love to have opportunities if the city would be willing to have us come on a night and maybe have open houses and being able to open it up to the community to get more information about these opportunities. Because in today's environment, I mean, obviously stress is high, anxiety is very high, it's for all ages. And if we can provide ways to help with that and look at different opportunities and different programs, then we'd love to be able to help that. And a lot of these programs started right here in Centerville. The Dr. Nedley's program is sponsored, and we participate with Centerville Cares. So definitely something that we look forward to continuing in the future. And hopefully that we can find ways, if we're looking to see and continue to grow, that we can bring it to each city to get more information out to the community. Okay, go to the next one. Swim lessons. So we have the largest group swim lesson program in the state. We probably do. It changes from year to year, but we have, if not the largest, one of the largest in the state. We have American Red Cross instructors with over, so far we've had almost 1,800 swim participants. Like I mentioned before, 212 from Centerville. In 2021, we saw a really large group of people coming in to participate in swim lessons, and we had a large group of staff willing to teach it. Then wages changed, and people wanted to make more money. So we saw that dip in 2022, and we're starting to see that trend change as we've changed our wages and changed how we do things at the rec center. And we hope to see that get back up to some of the higher numbers, but we've seen that trend already start in 2023 compared to 2022. We hope that continues to move forward and grow as well. It is harder to get more people that are interested in teaching those lessons. It is time consuming. It is somewhat challenging depending on the age group that you're teaching. So we are looking for ways to continue to reward and find new staff that will be willing to teach swim lessons, because as we see on the news and we see in all over the areas, in different areas of the world, the country, this country, we see people that just don't know how to swim and having problems, sometimes losing their lives, and that's something we want to try to help and curb that in whatever way that we can. So swim lessons are a really important part of what we do. Go to the next slide. Some other current programs we have adaptive aquatics, we have junior lifeguarding, we have Red Cross certification courses for lifeguarding and our water safety instructors, CPR. We have an age group swim team, like I mentioned before, water polo, master swim team, and our water aerobics. We have water aerobics classes starting early in the morning and go into the late evening. So we have different times of the day depending on what people are wanting to do, but we try to have a little bit of a range of what we have going on there. And just a couple other things to mention that we have going on is last year we started with a new summer pass, and we have that continuing to go through the end of this month. That pass is available for basically half the cost of an annual pass that we have right now. At the end of the summer and until the end of September, if people enjoy their pass enough, they have the option to upgrade to an annual pass for the rest of the year. So that's we've seen already this year a larger participation in that summer pass, and we hopefully continue to see that grow in the future as well. And then, as I mentioned before, our member numbers, we're seeing a lot more insurance-based memberships. We're seeing that for a lot of people that are on Social Security, for different people that have Medicare. Through that, we're seeing a lot of revenues through that. It's good, and it's good for people to have that opportunity, that option. We've also just seen our memberships as a whole continue to increase over the last couple of years. Right now, our annual passes are doing really well. Our EFT, which are our monthly passes, continue to grow. And so we're seeing good movement, and we're continuing to see those things improve over the last couple of years since COVID happened. And we hope to continue to see those going into the future, working with the staff, working with the board, and finding ways that we can get our facility and our district in the best possible position going forward. And I think that is it. Thanks.
Thank you, Tiff. I've updated our council a number of times, and I would say as kind of a wrap around that probably from March, this recent March, 12 months prior, it's been a very challenging time at the rec center on a lot of different fronts. We've had some issues related to harassment and racism, potential lawsuits, sexual misconduct, budgeting, board members retiring or not retiring, electing not to stay on. So it's been a very challenging time. We really leaned on Tiff and the staff to step up, and I would say that Tiff's done a great job. He's given us, we set a performance plan in place at the beginning of the year. It was a tough conversation. I won't mince words about it, but Tiff's done a great job in stepping up, providing us updates, and he talked a little bit about some of the changes we've already been seeing. So from my vantage point, there's been a lot of great progress made within the last few months. So any questions for Tiff?
Sorry I talk so much. There's a lot of information.
It's a
I wanted to give you
presentation
guys.
after all, yeah.
So,
Yeah. Any questions from staff? Okay, thank you so
Thanks,
much,
guys.
Tiff, sure appreciate it.
Y'all have a good rest of the evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is a public hearing for our fiscal year 2025 final budget. Nate, you going to be doing our presentation on that one? Looks like it. Doesn't even have to respond. Just need some walk-up music for you, Nate.
There you go.
Okay. Maybe we'll ask you what that might be if you had your druthers. Okay.
Think about it.
Go ahead and provide us your information. It will be a public hearing. We'll open that once we have a chance to hear from Nate and ask some staff questions.
All right, thank you, Council. As Councilman Summerhays mentioned, this is a continuation of the public hearing for the adoption of the fiscal year 25 budget. And then we also have a separate or an additional item, setting the 2024 property tax rate. So just I won't go into detail since we've done that in our prior meetings, but just a quick reminder that state law requires us to adopt a final budget by June 30th. The budget presented before you is a balanced budget as required by state law. Again, just to quickly how we got here, back in the end of March, we had a budget retreat. That was the first public meeting that the public had access to view the details of the budget. Back on May 7th, we held a public hearing and adopted the tentative budget. And then at that point, it was made available to the public for comment and review. And then on June 4th, we held a public hearing for the final budget, and City Council voted to continue the public hearing today. Since the meeting 2 weeks ago, we've just had a couple small changes. The county has issued the county auditor has issued the 2024 certified tax rate. The certified tax rate for 2024 is 0.00121, which would amount to $2,275,565 in property tax revenue. And that includes $7,709 of new growth. So just a quick reminder of how property taxes work in Utah. The city gets the same amount of revenue year over year unless we go through a property tax increase or the truth in taxation process, or if we get new growth through development. So this year, there's not a property tax increase proposed, but again, it did increase a little bit due to that new growth that we.
How much did you say it increased?
The new growth was $7,709.
7,000?
Yeah, so not a ton
Not
of
much.
growth. No. Jennifer, you could pull up that, that picture I sent you.
Oh, yeah, it's right here.
This is a graph that we've used in past years,
That
just
was
for your
mine.
information. This just shows our property tax over the years. We have, since 1997, we've done property tax increases just in 3 of those years, in 2017, 2021, and 2022. So again, you can see the fluctuation in the rate, because again, unless we go through the truth in taxation process to increase the rate, when property values increase, our rate decreases unless we go through the truth in taxation process. So
Because we were 1,259 last year, correct?
correct.
Yeah.
So it went down slightly. And then also, just for your information, it doesn't affect our budget at all, but the county sent me the median home values for the city. So for this year, the median home value is $568,000. Again, a residential home is taxed at 55% of that value. So their taxable value of the median home would be $312,400, which would make at this tax rate, it would mean that the average Centerville home would pay $378 to Centerville in property taxes.
300, you said 378?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
So again, that's all I have.
Any changes since our last conversation, going through the budget line item by line item? When we went through the budget last meet, what, a month and a half ago?
So I had a number of changes that we went through last meeting 2 weeks ago. And then this year, since 2 weeks ago, we've just had the certified tax rate, the property tax increase, which then affected the amount that we transferred to the capital projects fund.
Okay.
So yeah, that's it.
Any questions for staff before we open the public hearing? Okay, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anybody, the Connors or Kyle, want to comment who are here, or Jennifer, anybody online?
Nobody online?
Nobody online? Okay, well, great. Kyle, we'll have you.
Just Kyle Green, just want to come up and tell you guys thank you for going through the budgeting process. I know it's not easy. I appreciate you guys being good stewards of the money that we put into it. So,
Thanks, Kyle. Okay, seeing no other comments, I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion that we want to have amongst council members? If not, entertain a motion.
Can I do both of these at the same time? Is that
Lisa, is
acceptable
that
to do a
acceptable?
combined, may I do a combined motion? No, she's hesitating, it's fine.
Probably be.
Lisa, they are one item on the agenda, but I defer to Lisa. I would suggest we do them as two, since they're two separate resolutions.
I
is
move that we approve
my
resolution
suggestion.
2024-15 adopting the fiscal year 2025 final budget, period.
I'll second that.
Perfect. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just want to say one thing. I really do appreciate our staff. They work really hard to make this as easy as possible, and so thank you for all the efforts that you've put in.
I think our city's budgeting process is fantastic.
It is really well done.
A plus plus.
Yeah, so thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go a roll call vote with Councilmember Meekum starting.
Aye.
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 Aye. Passes unanimously.
Now I will move that we approve resolution 2024-14, setting the 2024 real and personal property tax rate for the general fund at 0.001210.
Second that.
Perfect. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay. Councilmember Hayman.
Aye.
Aye. It's all right.
I guess I'm gonna
I'm
let
pro
you
tem.
vote.
I still have a vote now.
Yeah. I am also aye.
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 Okay, that also passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, well, I'll move to the second public hearing item, which is our budget amendment for the fiscal year 2024, budget amendment number 2. So Nate, I assume you got that one as well.
Yes, I do, thank you. So yeah, we have a budget amendment for the current fiscal year. This will hopefully be the final one for the year. So I'll go through this presentation. I do want to note that included in your packet is a summary sheet, so you can refer to that if you want to see the total impact to that line, because some accounts have multiple items that affect it, and that's also included at the tail end of this presentation. Okay, so the first item we have tonight is related to the Whitaker. The Whitaker Museum hosted a tea party event, and from what I hear, it had a great turnout. So this is just recognizing the fees that they collected for that, and then increasing their expense line so that they could purchase the items necessary to host that event. Okay, the next item, there's a number of items in the police department. The first is the Citizens Academy. They just received more revenue than we had initially budgeted for. So that's just a $450 increase, again, recognizing the revenue, and then increasing their expense line to allow them to spend for that. And then the police department has also received various donations in the amount of $8,755. So we're recognizing the revenue and increasing their expense line to allow them to spend those donations.
Nate, is that cash donations or are those in-kind donations?
Cash. We don't recognize in-kind donations, do we?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the last one on this is the flock safety. So if you remember, we initially started our trial around the flock safety, I think back in about April of 2023. We did that trial run. Flock safety didn't bill us until October of 23, which is the current fiscal year. And that was after the books had already closed for fiscal year 23. So the entire amount of that trial run got booked into this year. And then in January 2024, an agreement was proposed to council, and we entered into that 5-year agreement. And then just got billed for the first year of that. So right now you'll see we kind of got two, not double billed, but billed for the trial run and for this first year of service in this fiscal year. So I'm proposing that we just use fund balance to pay that $30,000 for the flock safety agreement.
Fund balance is coming out of general fund?
Fund 47?
Yes. And all these
Oh, it
right-
is coming out of
General fund or
147?
Fund 47?
General fund.
General, okay, we're gonna use general fund.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Dave.
Yeah, this is a police operational expense.
Right, that's what I would have
I-
imagined,
I-
not a capital.
Right, I was gonna say, I'd prefer,
But
yeah.
he'll get to where, anyway,
Yeah.
we'll talk about at the end what that 30%, anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Continuing in the police, they have received various grants that we hadn't initially budgeted for. The first being the early intervention grant for $13,920. Then we
What
received.
is that? What is the early intervention grant? I'm sorry.
Hi.
I'm curious to know what that is.
Okay, so the state legislators passed a law that by January 1st of 2025, each police department will have in place an early intervention electronic program that will help track and identify officers who need special attention, maybe officers who are struggling uses of force, and
Okay,
so.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, then we received a grant from the Internet Crimes Against Children for $4,896. And then this last grant, the mental health grant, just to explain this a little bit more, we initially received this in fiscal year '23. It was a $10,000 grant. We spent $8,100 of that on the employee assistance program for the police, Providence. But we still had $1,900 that did not get spent. And so that went into our fund balance, so I'm proposing that we should use our fund balance to cover that $1,900 to finish out the spending for that grant in this current year.
So when you do have a grant and you haven't used it at the end of the fiscal year, it goes into the fund balance and then, okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were doing. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to streets. If you recall, about a year ago, they had an engine in one of their big trucks that blew up. So it went before City Council on June 20th of 2023, and we approved the engine overhaul for that truck. The work did not get completed until 2024, or the 2024 fiscal year. So again, I'm proposing that we should use the fund balance of $30,859 to cover that repair. Okay, in parks, we have a proposed budget amendment for relating to Dual Creek irrigation. So the first problem is that Dual Creek didn't send our fiscal year '23 bills until November of '23. They were going through an audit. And when we got those bills, according to our Parks Director, Bruce Cox, it was about a 38% increase over what we were billed in fiscal year '22. And then, so those got recorded in this current fiscal year. And then the bills that we were expecting in fiscal year '24 came here in April, and that reflected about a 15% increase over the bill for fiscal year '23. So again, because we have that, those 2 years worth of billing in this current year, we didn't spend it in fiscal year '23. It just went unspent in that account. And so now we're just using the fund balance to cover that cost.
Sure, Councilmember Hurst hasn't had too many complaints about Dual Creek's billing practices.
Oh, we did. We heard him, didn't we, Kyle? No, we heard a lot, which is fine. It was frustrating. But let me ask you really quickly. So that 15% increase over fiscal year '23, I'm assuming we have just kept it the same for fiscal year '25. What is it? What have we budgeted? Because frankly, it's going to continue to go up 15% a year for the next 3 to 4 years. So.
Yeah, I don't think we budgeted enough. Let me pull it up real quick.
Sorry, I don't know where to look really quick, or I'd do it for you. You're just faster than me.
No, you're okay. Give me 1 second.
Just go back to the previous agenda.
No, I mean, we can just do a budget amendment again, but I just,
It would be nice not to, right?
yeah, I mean, on that one, it is gonna be that way for the next, I think they said at least through 2028.
will be easier for us just to do the bunch amendment since we're so far into.
I'm totally
right,
fine
yeah.
with that.
Yeah,
I would
next
not
year, for
suggest.
We've already approved the budget.
Yes,
Right,
so
I
for-
didn't,
yeah.
I didn't think about it, I wish I
Doesn't
would
matter
have.
at this point, actually.
But,
For next year,
I can't
I
if we
I
get the
guess
numbers
I'm
soon, it'd be
saying it
great.
more for the council now to realize we will
I
have
can't
to
remember
have
if
an
we have that.
amendment on that.
That's your question.
Yeah, so we had, for the current year, we had budgeted 16,500. For fiscal year '25, we have in the budget 28,960.
So we'll still be a little short.
So we'll still be a little bit short.
Okay, say one more time. What was the first number?
16,500.
That was
Current
this-
fiscal year.
That was
That's-
24.
That was 24. And for next year, we've got 28?
28,960.
Okay, so we'll have to put in another,
We'll be short a few thousand,
Yeah.
at least.
okay.
All right.
And this is just, I'm sorry, one more question on that. This is just for this fiscal year, the 40,000?
Yeah, so this covers the bills, the money that we didn't spend in fiscal year '23 because we didn't get the bills. And then it also covers the increase above what we had budgeted for the current fiscal year.
So it does include fiscal year '23. That 40,000 is both of them? Oh, okay. Well, we'll be pretty
Yes,
close then.
we'll be close, 30,000, maybe 31, 32,000.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this
That's
year's bill
great.
was about 30,000, if I remember right.
Okay.
Okay, so if you recall, we receive RAP tax, and the current system that we have in place is that 85% of it goes to parks, 5% goes to the theater, and 5% of it goes to the Whitaker, and the remaining 5% stays on the RAP tax fund to be used for future projects. What's difficult is we estimate when we do our budget what we're going to receive for RAP tax, but we never know until we actually get it. And so that makes it difficult for the Whitaker home. If we receive more RAP tax than what we were expecting, then obviously they weren't planning on spending that. So we have this unspent RAP tax that's sitting in the general fund. So what we want to do is move any unspent RAP tax that was given to the Whitaker home back into the RAP tax fund. What this does is it makes it a lot easier for us at year end as we're compiling the financial statements, that if we left it in the general fund, we'd have to recognize it as restricted cash because RAP tax funds can only be used for those purposes laid out in the law. And so by moving it back to the RAP tax fund, it's cleaner, and it doesn't get commingled within the general fund monies. So this item is just proposing that we take any unspent RAP tax funds and move it back into the RAP tax. We don't know what that number will be until we finalize our books. But whatever that number is, we would just transfer it back to the RAP tax fund. That makes sense?
How does our city attorney feel about a TBD? There, I get it, it's okay.
There's
Then
a
it
little bit
says,
of
you're giving us authority to make those changes
Yeah,
as
it does say
necessary.
transfer any unspent Whitaker home RAP tax, so it's specific, but that's okay.
I think that's the better way to handle it.
Yeah,
We don't have a crystal ball, so I think the best way we can do it.
yes,
Yeah.
just specify it.
Okay, this next item, we've had 4 employees who have retired or resigned this past year. And with those, as they leave us, they get paid out some of their vacation and all-purpose leave balances. And so this just recognizes their payouts for those 4 employees. So again, we're just using fund balance and then allocating it to the expense accounts that correlate to their salaries. This is another TBD. So the state code allows the general fund balance to be between 5 and 35% of revenues. We receive revenues for the current fiscal year. We'll receive those in July and beyond. So we don't know what that 30% will be exactly. So we're proposing that we keep our general fund balance at 30% of general fund revenues and transfer the excess to our capital projects fund. And this is what we did last year. The next item, so that was all the general fund. Now we're moving on to the capital projects fund. We had budgeted some monies for security cameras. They came back quite a bit more than what we had budgeted. and this came before council and was approved in April of this year. So I'm proposing that we use fund balance out of our capital projects fund to fund those security cameras.
What did we initially?
We also increased the scope. It wasn't the budget
Yes,
increase, we
that's
increased
right.
the scope.
We'd initially budgeted 82,000.
Okay, that's
and it
right.
came back
I
at-
just wanted to remember
We
what the
increased the
delta
scope and we
was.
also increased the duration.
Yeah, yeah, it goes a lot longer, right?
Correct.
It was a good deal.
Yep.
Wow.
We will have a closed session where we'll demonstrate, once we use cameras, show you kind of what we can see.
Okay.
It's pretty awesome.
That's great.
It's definitely far more accurate than it used to be. It helps.
Okay.
Okay, and then moving on to the RAP tax fund. As we discussed, our allocation, we're proposing that we keep that same allocation, but again, if we receive more RAP tax funds than what we were expecting, the problem becomes that if we keep our allocation, we budgeted a certain amount to send to the Whitaker and a certain amount to send to the theater, and if we receive more than what we were expecting, it puts us, and keep that same allocation, it puts us over budget, which puts us at risk of a finding. So again, I'm proposing that we just, if we get excess RAP tax funds, then we keep the same allocation that we've planned, 85, 5, and 5, and transfer whatever that amount is, and increase the budget to match that amount. Okay, then the final item is in the water fund. When we have a developer come in, they're in charge of paying for the construction of the water line. So they pay the city a fee, and then the city goes out for bid and contracts out the installation of that water line. And so this year we've received $543,650 in excess of what we had originally budgeted. And so I'm proposing we recognize that revenue and then increase our capital projects line, which would pay for the installation of those water lines. And then these final slides, again, these are just screenshots of that other document that you have in your packet. This one just shows the summary of the general fund revenues. The next one shows the summary of the general fund expenses. And then the final slide shows just the summary of all the other funds that we talked about. So anyway, with that, I do recommend that we adopt these budget amendments. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Nate. Yeah, any questions from council?
You always do a great job laying it out,
Thank you.
particularly for somebody like me, so thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no.
Lindsay, do you want me to make a motion?
It is a public hearing.
It is, sorry, it is a
Oh,
public
okay,
hearing,
well,
so
we
I'll
gotta
go
do
ahead and
that
open the
first.
public hearing. Thank you, Nate. Still have our 3 members of our public in personal attendance. Jennifer, anybody else join online?
We did have one person join online. I'm not sure if they're
Okay.
here to comment.
Right, okay.
Heather, I see you're online. If you'd like to comment, you can
I think
unmute.
Heather was probably going to join for a different agenda item, is my guess.
Okay. Well, feel free to unmute if
Yes.
you'd like.
Okay, seeing no comments from the public, I'll close the public hearing. And further discussion or entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve fiscal year 2024 budget amendment number 2 as discussed and presented by Nate.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Brian.
There's a resolution number.
Oh, yeah,
I
did you
don't know
state
if
the
we need
resolution
that.
I
number,
did.
Gina? Okay,
Yeah, 2024-12.
Again,
correct,
so-
yep. Okay, any other discussion amongst the council? With that, I'll start the voting. Aye?
Aye.
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 Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, thanks, Nate, appreciate it so much. That finishes up public hearing for Mrs. Strasser, who's online, doesn't know, agenda item number 3 was pulled, so that one we'll skip over, and we'll move on to our water increase discussion. Mike, you have that one tonight?
City Council, thanks for allowing me to be here today, I guess. So, always a fun challenge, right?
You guess
But yeah,
for
we
you or
are-
for us?
We are looking at a 4% increase. We had our big water rate increase in 22, 23. Last year, we didn't do one. Probably should have done a slight increase last year, but we decided to put it together with this year. So we're asking for a 4% increase. You know, the factors that we looked at is, number one, Weaver Basin for our 500 acre feet of water went up 14%. We had our cast iron, our brass, and our materials go up at least 4 to 5%, well, excuse me, 3 to 4%. And we had our labor go up about 5%. So when we level the playing field out, we feel like a 4% increase is what we need. I did make mention that next year the forecast is we may have to go up slightly again due to what we're seeing in the labor costs. I mean, if we want to continue having our master plan move forward at the pace that we're going, this is kind of the direction we have to go. It's not my desire. I'd rather stand here and say we got sufficient funds for our needs, but it's not the case. With all the other, like Weaver Basin and the others doing infrastructure, especially at a 14% increase, it's going to be rough. And, you know, we went over that in the work session meeting, but if you remember right, by what I stated was by 2028, our water rate to Weaver Basin is going to double from what we're paying. So that's kind of what I have for you to mill over and whatever. So any questions for me? Okay.
Mike? No questions for Mike? A question, Lisa, that Gina and I were actually chatting about. So on these water rate increases and item number 5, our drainage rate increase, can you walk us through why those are not public hearings?
They're just fee schedule amendments.
Okay.
Oftentimes we have had public hearings on them.
Is that a legislative choice that we can make in the future?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, okay. It feels like you can give us guidance in the future, but maybe walk us through in a future, maybe now or in a future discussion, why we would or would not do that.
Actually, I thought, yeah, that would have been a good one to have. I think we just missed that this time.
Okay.
Okay.
I feel the same. I'd rather
Well,
be completely transparent with the
not
public.
Yeah, so we've talked about it obviously in multiple meetings now at this point. And of course, we have the public hearing for our budget, so there's the opportunity there.
That's
So we've
true, because
discussed
it's,
it.
I guess it is part and parcel of the
Part of the
budget,
tentative
so,
and final.
yeah.
Again, in this situation where we have been deliberating drainage rates so late in the game, it just,
Yeah.
there's opportunity that we would like to have open houses with the public before it's implemented. But yes, this is one of those items that we could have considered a public hearing.
Yeah, and I appreciate that clarification because it is already part of our budget, which is a public hearing, so that 4% is already embedded in there.
Correct. And this is
So
just
it begs the question, why is it on the agenda anyways if it's already embedded in the budget?
because our fee schedule, well, I'll let Lisa answer
Just because
that
it's
from
a fee
legal
schedule
standpoint.
item?
Yes, so
Okay.
you had approved that as part of your budget, but then we had to implement it by putting it in our fee
make it official.
schedule.
Okay.
And then there is a section in the municipal code, or in the statutes that says you can charge any fees, but they have to be done by resolution.
If we increased our printing rates by 5 cents, is that public hearing worthy, right?
Correct,
So
yes.
that's where there's some level of discretion.
And I
in
could
how
see
we
that as
proceed.
a redundant public hearing based off the fact that the budget was a public process as well.
I completely agree with you, and I think that is easy to understand if you're sitting on the council and we've been through all these discussions, but I think our public, when they come in June, they know that the budget's gonna come out about June. And so I wonder if it's not appropriate to allow them to make comments if they would like to. I agree it's embedded in, but I don't know that they always are looking at it at that depth, especially if they're not seeing a property tax increase. So I guess for me, I would like to see that transparency because that is one of those times when our public can come and ask us to consider something different.
I agree with
you,
Gina. Yeah, and maybe you just do it earlier in the process and
I was
it's
gonna
more
say
a
earlier in the
notion of
process.
we're considering. Please give us your comment.
Yeah,
Because it would be really
I
hard to
wouldn't
have
wanna
them
do the
here
public hearing at
tonight,
this
because we're
point,
not
because-
gonna change it.
Correct, exactly.
Well, right.
We've already voted on it, so we're
Yes.
not gonna change it.
I
So it
agree.
needed to happen a month ago. So if people were to try and change our minds, we would want to hear what they have to say.
For sure. So maybe it does need to happen for sure earlier, and of course on the drainage one.
We're not disagreeing with you, for sure.
Yeah,
In
okay.
this situation, of course, was an anomaly, but
Okay.
we don't disagree with you.
Okay.
And actually, just looking at the last time we did this, we did not have a public hearing,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
So it hasn't been our practice to this point.
Okay.
Okay.
I just think it might be helpful, but I hear what you're saying, that it would be really weird to have the public hearing now because we've already approved the
It'd
budget.
be kind of awkward if we had, 100
We're
people
past that
here
point.
mad and we didn't.
I guess we could have put this agenda item before the budget.
I will defer to the mayor and council how you want to proceed with these
Okay.
in the future.
I'm fine to, I'm fine with what the majority.
Nate, maybe note to file in March of next year, you can remind us, so, okay. Any other discussion items amongst council?
I have a question. Do we know about what that will up monthly, an average bill for the water?
I think that's in the council packet, right?
I
can
didn't
look
see it,
and
but
see
maybe.
real quick.
I didn't see it either, but that doesn't mean I didn't miss it. What are we at, about $45? 40, I think mine was 48 last month. I looked at it to
Yeah.
see.
It will depend on.
$1.92-ish.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean, my house is what I'd consider just an average
Right.
home as far as the water connection.
I thought I seen it in here, but I'm not seeing it now.
That's okay, as long, let's get,
It's probably close. That's a ballpark that it's close.
I'm not exactly sure what the average is throughout Centerville, but taking about a $45, if it was $45 bill, it would add $1.80.
okay.
It's real similar to what?
No,
I
that's
just
not-
checked my water bill last month because I knew this was coming and I was like, I want to see what that looks like, so.
Okay.
I would like to also add to this, it would be, I know we've talked about it, but I really do think we should implement an inclining block rate structure, which we've talked about, so I'm just plugging for that I'd like to see that happen, so that when we have people using culinary water for outside, they're not wasting it. Do you want me to make a motion? Oh, no, Mike, if you're gonna comment, I'd rather.
I get accused of being filibuster sometimes, so. Anyway, the only thing I was saying is next year, the water rate increase, the way that I'm gonna look at it is gonna be totally different. Kind of like I talked about in the budget meeting is,
Okay.
we're gonna be looking at high users, people that use city water, that don't have irrigation water to water their lawns. I mean, really, if you think about the impact fee and how we collect the impact fee, we really didn't charge for people watering their lawns. So that's the focus that I'm gonna be looking at next year.
I think our discussion has been, the charges for usage won't be on a linear basis, they'll be on a more
Well, that's what.
exponential basis.
Yes,
Right.
it'll go like this. That's what an inclining, I should have maybe explained that. That's what an inclining block
Linear
rate.
versus logarithmic?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So trying to, it'll be just trying to balance the way that the way the trend's going. I mean,
Yeah.
there's, like we talked earlier, there's so many different ways that they do it, like if I gotta pump it up in another pressure zone, they charge more money for it. Well, we have a luxury where we don't have to do that, so.
Right.
Just looking at the anomalies that are in other water systems, what they're charging for, for me, it's like if you have irrigation water and the city's giving you clean drinking water, I don't think we've ever took that into consideration, so.
Well, I'm getting concerned that we're getting, because of the expense in the secondary system, people are saying, well, I'm just gonna use my culinary water. I don't think we're to that point where that would be
No, but it-
equitable, but we are starting to push against that ceiling a little bit.
We are, and it's gonna happen, and
And we don't want to have a problem like is going on in Woods Cross where the aquifer is failing. You and I understand that, but I want to say it for the rest of everyone else. Like, it is really important that we protect those wells. The way that you have done that for years has been nothing but an absolute benefit to the citizens. But sitting in the Jewel Creek meeting, it appeared to me that I was like, we have some education to do.
well, and we have some protection in there where if they if they have a choice to have pressurized irrigation, they have to use it, they can't jump on our system.
I was gonna say, that
That is
can't
in
really
city
happen,
ordinance.
because you've got to pay for your irrigation,
it can't-
but it wouldn't do you any
It
good.
can't really happen, but people don't understand that.
But what good would it do them to use their culinary water, because their Dual Creek bill's the same?
It is, but if they don't pay it for 3 years, then they're taken off and they lose their shares.
Right,
there
so
is-
that would be the case, that's what I'm
But
saying,
that,
but
but
it's
they
not.
can do it. If they don't pay their bill for 3 years, they don't pay the bill anymore. So it actually can happen. I think we have some discrepancies. I spoke with the Jewel Creek Board after that meeting and said, we are going to have to start partnering. One of the things I talked about in that meeting was how we looked at the affordability guidelines for culinary, but we also included the secondary in that. And we're pushing the top of that ceiling also, you know, at this point, because of the increases we were basing on both sides. So I just want to make sure that we are making sure that we encourage our residents to not pay their bills. They need to know that that is not a great situation for our well system.
True.
And there is one other side that is why I think our water rates are very comparable. We have a lot of infrastructure, so it does cost money for infrastructure. But in saying that, Centerville jumped on board, I believe it was either 88 or 89, with the infrastructure program of changing things out. Yeah, we're still a 30-year master plan to get caught up to where we want to be. But I think the citizens are still seeing lower rates. If we wouldn't have jumped back in 88 or 89, our water rates would be a lot higher because we capitalized on many, many years where we got labor and material dirt cheap, basically, because of the economies. It goes on a cycle, same as always. But, I think, we could be looking at a lot higher rates than what we are with the infrastructure we have.
That is a really good point you bring up. I 100% agree with you on that, looking at what I saw when I was working at the state, and even now with some of my private work, you're right. It has been a benefit to the residents. That's one thing that has really been thought out well ahead of time. So that's a tribute to you and your staff, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2024-16, amending the fee schedule to increase the culinary water rate by 4%.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll start with Councilmember Hurst.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, that passes unanimously. We'll move on to item number 5 on our agenda, which is the drainage rate increase. Mike, do you have that? Oh, no, Dave, you've got that one. Awesome. Perfect.
Doing it, okay.
Okay, you got the heavy lifting tonight, from 4 to 53.
So, due to this sharp-desk man over here's comment earlier, I'm gonna point more this direction. Thanks for having me. I am here just to discuss the fee increase for the drainage utility fund. This is something we have talked about. It was approved in the budget to go to this 53% increase. Luckily, 53% does only equate to about $4 a person. I know it doesn't soften the blow for everybody, but it is.
Per household.
For equivalent.
Yeah, ESU.
Just ESU,
Yeah.
the equivalent service units. So, it is hopefully not a hardship to the residents, but it is beneficial. We did have the original proposal was upwards of 100% or slightly above 100% increase, just to address our master plan, the funding of additional personnel, some of those things that are been long needed since our last increase about 9 or 10 years ago. At that point, we did do a 212% increase, which sounds awful, but it was also about $4 at the time. So, with that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain anything.
Any questions for staff?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to see us maybe try and level this out a little bit, like the water, the culinary water, so it's not.
My point was, remember, this was a 100% increase at one point?
Yes.
So I don't see it being quite like the water increase potentially.
No.
I think staff's
we'll
recommendation
still have
was
some
let's do 53% and kind of see
But
how
that-
this plays out with grants and.
Well, and it's whether or not UDOT
State.
will help fund some of the improvements.
That was some of the conversation.
Exactly. So
Evaluating
it's kind of a wait and
master
see
plan.
game.
It is a wait and see, but I'd still maybe suggest that we consider small increases as we're waiting for that, just so it's not so difficult.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I would assume that over this next year, we'll be able to get a better grasp of all of those projects that are coming up, the possible funding mechanism, whatever might be the interest from us to participate in those. That'll help guide whether we need to do another significant, but yes, then I think going into a minimal increase annually might be in our best interest.
I am very happy that staff suggested, that you thought you could get by with a 53% this round while we wait to see what UDOT decides to do, and the county, I think, is
Big
part of the
signs.
equation. Okay.
Yeah, so this is, as we shared 2 weeks ago, there's all these potential small incremental increases, whether it's water, drainage, a property tax increase. There might be a need for more officers here shortly. And so trying to balance all these competing interests with the limited funds we have available, you as a council will have a meeting, a work session, or even just a council retreat to start prioritizing these, because we just don't have enough money to do all of these items. Incremental increases, of course, we always support because we fall so far behind. But again, we don't want to nickel and dime every fund.
Okay.
And for the,
So we need to have that broad conversation so we don't get excited about one item and say, we're going to do this.
yes, I agree.
We say, well, we don't
Yeah.
have any money
And in the
over here.
context of that, I mean, if we're keeping up to date on the weekly retail sales collections, we're down, and if you saw the retail sales data nationally, did not meet expectations. So we're going to have to think through that in the
Probably going to get a
next
little
budget
tougher.
season. Yeah,
Oh.
exactly, so.
It was interesting today, I heard that the numbers had came out, and last year, the things that were lowest were home improvement stores. So I thought that's one thing that's hurting us.
Yeah, I mean, between Home Depot and Colonial, those are big hits to us.
Yeah, I was just really interested. I was listening to a report on it, and it said that was the number one thing that had decreased in sales tax last year.
And I totally appreciate what you're saying, Brant. I guess I want to just add to that. I still think it's important, even if we have to make tough choices, we still need to know what those choices are. So I like that you said we need to
Brant,
look
when-
at it broadly.
When have you kind of bookmarked in your brain when that might come to us?
I defer to the mayor on how he wants to set his agenda. No,
Okay.
so the mayor and I have a long list of
I'm
items.
just assuming that would be prior to, or as part of our next year's budget retreat.
It will be, if you had to ask me, 3 to 6 months from now,
Yeah.
right?
I
Let's
guess
get
we
through
want to
this
give
and-
you policy direction prior to, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the hope is to have some council retreat, however we form that, whether it's just a special work session or whatnot, or, anyway, nonetheless, we'll discuss all these competing ideas and funding. We're talking about transportation utility funding, which is an increase. But again, also being mindful of all these other South Davis Fire Metro, South Davis Rec, Utopia, whatever all those, we just want to be mindful of those as we don't want to overburden our residents, so.
Agree.
Thanks, Brent.
Just one-
Uh-oh.
Lisa, please.
If I could just publicly retract my comment that suggested we may have missed something, that, I did look, and we have not had public hearings on these before, so I apologize to Mike and Dave for implying that we might have missed something.
We have
We rarely
not.
do, so I apologize.
Okay.
We have not had public hearings for the water and
We
drainage.
have not. At the,
Okay.
when we're amending the fee schedule, the last few times, we've not had a public hearing.
Because again, generally, it's part of our budget process.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, generally, particularly like we did with the water rate increase, we had open houses set up even before we got to the budget, and that was just a little different situation. So there was not necessarily need to have a public hearing, we've already done a lot of that legwork.
Yeah.
Now, the drainage rate increase, again, the delayed effective date will give us an opportunity to meet with residents and have conversations.
Okay.
I know that's kind of after the fact, but it's still important to help residents prepare for that.
For sure.
Okay, it is not a public hearing item, as we discussed, so if there's no further discussion, sorry, Kyle, we'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve resolution 2024-17, amending the fee schedule to increase the drainage utility fee by 53%.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any further conversation? Okay, seeing none, we'll start back with Councilmember Meekum.
Aye.
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 Aye. And that passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to our summary action. Just a reminder how to present that motion with the stated amounts fully. So we've got a bid award. Any reason why we need to have, any questions from our side for staff? Any reason to have Mike trudge all the way back up here? Okay.
Yeah, I actually had a question.
Okay. Mike, Dave, we have a question on the summary action approval for this Ormond bid. Your filibuster's back on.
So this is the maintenance money that you guys have allotted us to be able to spend, the 150,000 thereabouts. And so this is to do a couple projects. Couple key ones is with Fourth West being tied in order to get rid of the water main on there, we're making a last connection. It's something that we need to do as a maintenance item. So the guys will be doing one over there kind of by Hughes, east of Hughes, tying that water line in so that we have a good loop system. So that it enabled us enough to get rid of that line on Parish Lane from 4th West all the way to 8th West, which was asbestos cement pipe. So to me, what we did was a win-win. Unfortunately, we need to take that in as a water line project. We have another one up at our booster pump station that needs the attention of a contractor versus our crews. Plus then, some of this too is for them to do some valve tops and bonnets and stuff. We're looking at 4th East before we get the grant so that we can be well out in front of that. And we probably need a total of 2 years to get that ready to go for the overlays. So that's kind of what we're looking at, if that helps at all.
What's your question?
I have no concern at all with the projects that are being proposed. I just saw listed here, there are 4 bids that were received. And the last
Probably
one is
3 bids.
engineer.
Yeah.
This is my
This is
question.
crazy, huh?
Is engineer estimate not a bid, but that was what our engineer estimated and we got 3 other bids?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct, so if
That
you
was
go like to the third attachment, the bid tabulation,
And we do have times when
the
the
engineer
engineer
estimate
wins
is
the
the final
job.
column, so you compare it against
Thank
what
you.
was
Okay.
Yeah.
budgeted.
That's,
Yeah.
I assumed as much, but I just wanted, given the nature of my last question that I asked at last city council, where it was we were awarding it to the lowest bid, I saw a lower number and I just wanted to double check. That's all. That was my only question.
Okay, pretty easy.
Thank you, Mike. Okay,
I'll make a motion that we award this project to Ormond Construction in the amount of $110,435.
I'll second that.
perfect. We have a motion and a second. Do we have to do a roll call vote on this one?
For the amount.
Okay, yeah, for the amount. So Shaylin, we'll start with you, Councilmember Haven.
Aye.
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 Okay, that passes unanimously. Move on to the approval of previous meeting minutes from the June 4th work session and city council. Any changes or comments to those minutes? Okay, I'm seeing negative head shakes. If so, we'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Monthly financial report. Nate, anything you want to review or discuss as part of the monthly financial report?
Just note 2 things. First is the first financial statements got uploaded last Friday, didn't have comments on it. So we've corrected that. So if you haven't seen the updated version, they're up there now. And then the only thing I'd add is I heard from Utopia today that they're sending our rebate checks. They're cutting the checks this week. So I know that's a negative fund balance, or negative cash balance in that account. But we'll get those checks before the end of the year, so that'll be corrected.
Okay, perfect.
That's
Thanks, Nate. Okay, council report. You're sick of hearing from me. Sorry, I'll make it quick. We already heard South Davis Rec. I think you're all up to speed there. There's nothing to add other than what Tiff had said about board members filling those positions. We had final interviews last night. 6 candidates and selected 2, and those will be presented in our next meeting in a month and sworn in. There are two, they're on two different cycles in terms of their term. One is filling the remainder of a term for one member that had resigned. It'll actually only go through December. And then the other is a 2 or 3 year term. So those terms are staggered. And then on trails, we have for lack of a better word, a Trails Summit that'll happen July 11th between Bountiful City and North Salt Lake City. It'll include staff members, elected officials, at least me and mayor will be there, possibly one other council member, and then also 3 of our Trails Committee members. So we're going to talk just about connectivity throughout our trail system as we're all kind of share things together, how we can improve, how we can help each other. At least for our part, I know that one of the discussions will be trying to create better, easier hiking and bike access. It's a little more safe below the Bountiful Gun Range area as well as ours, and trying to figure that out. Right now, there's some challenging trail areas through there. So I know that'll come up. But that's all I've got. Any questions for me? And as before, open it to any other council members on your committees if you have anything that needs to be addressed.
I just want to remind everyone, as well as the public, that the sewer district will have their public hearing on their rate increases this Thursday at 7 p.m.
Perfect. That should be probably well attended. They've done a good job messaging.
Yes. Yeah, they've tried to get the word out for sure.
Okay. City manager report.
Thank you so much. Same reminder for the Utopia will be Monday, June 24th, that's 6:30, so 6 and 6:30. The Utopia and UIA meet separately, but they both need to have their meetings to discuss the rate increase. I just have 3 other items. One, I just want to let you know, last night South Davis Fire approved their budget, so they're done. There was no property tax increases there. It'll be a smooth process this year. And second item is we do intend on having a July 2nd meeting, unless too many of you are out of town July 2nd, but our intent is to have a meeting on July 2nd. But if you do plan on being out of town, let me know. We can coordinate.
I was planning on it.
Are you planning a work session or just a
We plan on having a work session as well, and a regular meeting.
5:30?
I'll be here.
Peanut butter and jam for you.
It's just a weird time of year, where some years
Chicken
we have it, other years we don't.
Yeah.
Just want you to be mindful of that, let the mayor or myself know, and we'll coordinate. But we intend on having that, we're creating the packet now.
Okay.
Perfect.
And then a follow-up to that, Bryce and I had the opportunity to meet with Jive today regarding our branding effort. It was an awesome discussion, and I think we challenged them to create a few more logos for us to consider, and I'll tell you, there was 2 or 3 that I really liked, in addition to what we've already discussed, that some of you may already like, the ones that were already drafted. But I'm pretty excited about it. So with that being said, the hope is we could schedule maybe an off Tuesday night where we can have just, again, a branding discussion, because this is kind of, we're starting to finalize things, and I don't want it to be distracted by other items on the agenda that were not in that space, that frame of mind. So July 9th, are any of you available that evening for? And if not, I'll have Jennifer help me coordinate maybe an off night, any other night.
I can do July 9th.
I can do July 9th.
I will be out of town.
I think I will be out of town as well.
Okay. I want all of you there. So with 2 of you being out, Jennifer will help me coordinate that. But I'll get with the mayor first, because I really would need to know the mayor's schedule. So we'll have a conversation early next week and coordinate a time. And with that, that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
I've got a question for you, Brent.
Yes, sir.
I didn't ask it during the budget amendment process. Are you at liberty to elaborate on payouts for employees that left us or
Sure.
terminated elsewhere?
Sure. So, again,
What I'm getting at is I despise the thought that we have to pay for that, but
Well, again, I mean, that's a benefit they've earned. So we're talking about 52,000. We have 4 employees on average that 15 years of experience amongst the 4 of them. So keep that in mind. You had 1 employee.
Correct. I'm only talking about 1 employee. I don't want to, I guess
Are you
I don't
talking
want to be
about
responsible.
unemployment?
What's that?
Are you talking about-
No, he's talking about payouts. So, again, that's a benefit they've earned, and you don't, if you leave before a certain time, you don't get access to all of your benefits, purposely ignored. So, again, that's a benefit you've earned, and that's something that our leave balances here at the city are relatively low compared to other cities. And that's, at the end of their career, they might have accumulated a lot, and it's a huge payout, but at the same time, you have people that potentially have an illness, sickness, cancer, whatever the case might be, and they need that leave balance as available, right? If it's available to them, and they utilize that leave balance. So our leave balance of 240, or is it 360?
And I don't have a problem
What's
with
that?
that. Brant, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
That general comments, mine's more specific about
If
an employee leaves of their own volition, is terminated at their next place of employment.
Oh, you are talking about that, okay.
Don't want to
So-
be responsible. But that's why I said, are you at liberty to discuss it? If you're not,
Yeah,
that's
so
fine.
you're right, sorry, Lisa's correct. So, I will share that
If you
that
want
is
to
a
talk
very.
about that in a closed session at another meeting,
No,
that's fine.
well, again, it's nothing to do with us, it's just the way that the state conducts unemployment. And this is maybe more for a Councilmember Heyman question,
And
but.
that's part of the question is statutorily, what are we responsible for?
Well, we do have some choices in how we sign up for
Yeah.
unemployment. So governmental entities are allowed to sign up for, there's 2 names that I can never remember, but contributory versus
Reimbursable.
reimbursable. And so we have selected to only pay out when it occurs, rather than paying a monthly fee or an annual fee based upon the number of employees. And so historically, that has been a cheaper way to do it. But when it happens, it's a strict liability. And so that's why we ended up paying in this situation, why it reached back so far, in my opinion.
So
is
ours
that-
was a statutory
because of how we've chosen to pay it, and we
Correct, okay.
we are going to look into that and
Okay.
say, okay, wait a minute, but, you know,
It's a
when
good-
is
sounds
the
like a
break
cost-benefit
even?
analysis,
Yeah,
yes.
but it has been more cost-effective to do it this way, and only
We don't have
governmental
many.
entities can select this reimbursable.
I apologize for not, I was already still in the mindset of those payouts and not the.
No.
But we did pursue that and appeal again, and anyway, I do think that they've finally given us the explanation that, while not satisfactory, is, I mean, I feel like I can see the accuracy of it, so we just have to make the decision if that's the way we still want to do
Yeah.
it, knowing the risk, but again, this is not going to happen very often.
Keep in mind that employee has found employment, so we're no longer
Now
responsible
it's
for
cut
that.
Okay.
So, it's a done deal.
So I guess.
But it has created a great conversation for us and a lot of frustrations and a lot of emotions we've experienced through
Yeah.
this.
So my question was 2-pronged, and that is, we did talk about this in the context of payouts when somebody leaves and how much accrual they can get. And I don't have any problem with accruing the amount. It gets tricky if you say on a per calendar, or you can roll over the whole year. So if somebody accrues the full 240 and then they move on in December of that next year, then they could take an outsized, almost a double portion of accrued benefit where, yeah, they're entitled to it. But I think the council, as our discussion was, we don't want them to accrue like almost 2 years worth of it. We'd rather have it on like a cumulative rolling basis, not on a calendar basis. So just keep that one as part of that. That was part of that whole benefits package that we were still needed to
But
review.
it takes you more than a year to accrue the 240.
Correct, so if you've
So-
worked here long enough to accrue 240,
But you
but
might
then you
accrue-
accrue within the year and you move on or retire in December 15, let's say, you've accrued 240 plus that full year, and that's more than maybe we have thought we would.
Sure.
The larger than an obligation that we thought of. So anyways.
I will add that of these 4 employees, none of them were above our 240 leave balance.
Right. Okay. Okay. And some of the things, you know, we try to keep in mind is just, again, FMLA 12 weeks, right? And 240 hours or 360 hours, whatever, let's say it's a 360 at the end of that December. That's still not meeting FMLA, it's not covering them, those employees during that 12-week span. So again, we're just trying to be mindful of that employee benefit. We don't want them to not be whole if they do experience a medical issue or a loved one experience a medical issue. We want to make sure.
But do you have short-term disability that they can?
Not really. I mean, if you want to buy into it,
Right.
so.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Brent? Okay, I don't think we have a closed session tonight, is that correct? Okay.
Unless you want to have one.
Nope, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chuck.
Just like whacking the cup off. Nice work there.